Welcome to part one of my video, The Millionaire and the Showgirl, all about Marion Davies and her life with one of the richest, most influential men in American history, William Randolph Hearst, and how she ended up alone and an alcoholic. Hi everyone, and welcome to Tragic Hollywood Star of the Week on my channel, Tragic Hollywood on the Town. This week's star is someone who wasn't actually a big star, but she was extremely famous and extremely well known because she happened to be the mistress of one of the richest and most powerful men in the world. His name was William Randolph Hearst. Maybe you've heard of him. Hearst Castle, Hearst Publishing Industry, yeah. His mistress, Marion Davies, and if you know anything about Hearst, you ought to know about Marion Davies, is our profile tragic star of this week. But before we get into Marion Davies, do all the things, like, subscribe, check out my books on Amazon. There's a link in the description for the channel. Also, I'd like to point out, I go into a lot of detail on these stars on my Tragic Hollywood page on Facebook. There's a link to my Tragic Hollywood page in the description of this channel. And if you would be interested in checking it out, I highly recommend it because I do about a 20 to 30 photo tribute to each star. And I do captions under each photo, which go into detail about that star's life, where that photo was taken, what was happening at the time that photo was taken. Stuff that I really couldn't do on this video unless I wanted to make it a 2-hour video. And I'm already dragging my ass today. So no, I'm not going to make a 2-hour video. It's going to be a brief video on Marion Davies. Okay, now that we have all of that out of the way. Oh, also, can you interact with my videos? Because that helps the algorithm. Did you know Marion Davies or about her? Have you ever heard of Marion Davies? Have you ever seen a photograph of her? Did you ever see a movie that was based on Marion Davies? Just, kind of like and interact and maybe leave a nice comment on my videos. That would be great. Okay, let's get into Marion Davies. I just wanted to apologize for the quality of the sound on the rest of the video. I was having mic issues, which hopefully have been resolved. Thank you for your patience. Marion was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1897. She was brought up in a convent school. So she had a pretty strict religious upbringing, which is kind of ironic. A lot of those Catholic girls, they just kind of go wild later on. And that's what Marion did. She got sick of the convent life and she left home when she was about 15 or so. And she decided to be a showgirl on Broadway in New York. She was very pretty. She did have a speech impediment. This was a lifelong speech impediment. She stuttered quite a bit, but she was very pretty, very shy, very appealing, very innocent. She caught the eye of, guess who? Florence Ziegfeld, who put her in the Ziegfeld Follies. Well, when she was dancing in the Ziegfeld Follies, of course, that's a show that many, many wealthy men of that time frequented. This was sort of like, it wasn't as bad as the Midnight Follies that Ziegfeld held on top of the Amsterdam Theater. These were the more straight-laced follies, more showgirl type, but they were still kind of racy and they clearly appealed to male patrons more than female patrons. Anyway, she's dancing in the Ziegfeld Follies, and I guess William Randolph walked in one day and watched one of the shows, because why not? He met his first wife as a showgirl at the Ziegfeld Follies, so why not try again? Because his marriage was awful. He wasn't happy. It was a loveless marriage. So he goes looking for greener pastures, and he finds a very green pasture in the form of young Marion. And her name at the time was Marion Cecilia Doris. I don't know where Davies came from later, but that was her name, Doris. And Doris is the name that is inscribed on her tomb at Hollywood Forever. So you wouldn't know it that she's buried there because it says Doris on the outside. and that's spelled Douras. So I always kind of wonder why her tomb said Doris on the outside, but now I know why. So yeah, she caught the eye of a very wealthy, very married William Randolph Hearst, and they immediately began setting up house in Manhattan. He purchased a building that is still there in Manhattan. It's known as the Ritz Tower, and it's an absolutely gorgeous Gilded Age building. It's stunning, and the penthouse duplex was amazing. I think it's been severely renovated to death over the years, but still got that amazing ceiling, and it's just gorgeous. And he set up house with Marion in this duplex and let the world know that this was his lady, including his wife, who didn't appreciate it at all. Well, since Hearst was now her main man, she was not suited to be a showgirl anymore. So Hearst thought, why don't we try to make you a movie star? So he sets up his own studio, and it was called Cosmopolitan Pictures. And he signed his first actress, Marion Davies, and he signed her to a $500 a week contract. Of course, Marion hardly needed the $500 a week since she was living large everywhere Hearst went. Private yachts, private trains, elaborate accommodations everywhere they went. He had so much money. We're talking, this was before income tax, people. This was before property taxes, okay? He was probably as wealthy as someone like Jeff Bezos today. In that time, he would have been probably worth that. But without all the taxes that Jeff Bezos still has to pay, although I think he gets away with not paying many taxes. Anyway, yeah. Initially, she did okay. She showed a real flair for comedy. But because Hearst was managing her career, he forbid her to actually kiss any of her co-stars. They could get close, touch noses maybe, but she couldn't kiss them or any other suggestible things like lay down with them. God forbid. So, yeah, Hearst, he was a little bit of a moralist and a little bit of a hypocrite too. So, yeah. Anyway, but through Hollywood and her Hollywood years, she met a lot of Hollywood stars, and she was so funny. She would pantomime and mimic. She was really a funny, wonderful person to be around and to have at parties. She would make fun of Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin absolutely flipped his lid over Marion Davies. He flipped his lid over her. He loved her. And after a while, she returned his affections. So there was a little bit of a thing that went on between Marion Davies and Charlie Chaplin. I would have thought she'd been too old for him by then, but what do I know? Anyway, this all kind of came to a head when they went on Hearst's private yacht, the Oneida, and one night in November of 1924, there was a big party to be held on the Oneida that day because Thomas Ince, the famous movie producer who sort of invented the movie production studio, he's in my book, by the way, my second book. He was invited because it was his birthday, and there were a lot of famous people on board this yacht that day. There was, of course, William Randolph Hearst. That's his yacht. Then there was Marion Davies. There's a picture of her standing on the dock holding balloons for Thomas Ince. And then there was Charlie Chaplin. And then there was the famous gossip columnist Luella Parsons. I don't know what happened. Really, nobody really knows what happened. Everybody's like, Charlie Chaplin claimed he wasn't even there, which is bullshit. Luella Parsons made an absolute fabulous career for herself based on this scandal. She was just a New York syndicated columnist before this, and she became an international syndicated columnist, one of the biggest Hearst columnists, on Hearst payroll. It's rumored, Ince, let's just say Ince ended up dead. Okay, we're not real sure why. Somebody, we think, shot him, but we're not sure because that was never proven. He was carted off of the yacht, extremely ill, and he died in his home, I think a day later. And the doctor said, oh, it's just appendicitis or something like that. He was never clear. But the rumor has always been that Hearst saw Charlie Chaplin and Marion Davies in a compromising position, or at least he thought he saw Charlie Chaplin with his girlfriend, Marion Davies, in a compromising position. And he ran to get his pistol, and Charlie leapt up and started running to hide. You know, Hearst had a solid gold pistol, okay, that he carried around everywhere he went. And he went looking for Charlie Chaplin to shoot him, and he mistook Thomas Ince in a darkened hallway for Charlie Chaplin and shot him instead. This has been a rumor that has been around forever since it happened, 100 years. There's a whole movie based on it called The Cat's Meow. And I think somebody wrote a book called A Cast of Killers all about this. And everyone has always said that if you want to make William Hearst turn white, mention Thomas Ince. He paid her widow off nicely. He paid off the mortgage to this elaborate apartment complex, the Elise Apartments, which is in Hollywood, and it's still there. It's owned by Scientology. If you're nice to them, they'll give you a tour of it. It's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, but he paid that off for her and paid for her children's schooling and everything. And she never made any waves about it after that. So that was kind of a black mark on Marion Davies. And Marion, even she had an autobiography out. The Times We Had, I think. Anyway, in that autobiography, she says, oh, I never liked Charlie Chaplin. He was a real kook, which is so not true. They were crazy about each other. And Hearst saw it. But he didn't want to give up Marion. He really loved her. And so he broke it up, I guess. Anyway, Charlie got bored. I guess he went off and tried to marry some other pubescent girl like he always did before he met Ida O'Neill and ended up marrying her. And that marriage actually lasted, and she was a good and a stabilizing influence for him. Anyway, that was one of the scandals in Marion's life. She made several movies, and they did fine at the box office, but not real great. It's nothing to write home about. But her movie career was very overshadowed by her life with William Randolph Hearst at that time. He began building what is colloquially called the ranch, the castle on the hill. Today it's referred to as Hearst Castle. It's a state park. You can visit it. You can visit nearly every inch of it if you want to. It'll take you about 3 days. I know because I did it 2 summers ago. I visited just about every inch of that place I could visit. Fascinating stuff, but you better be in shape because you're going to have to climb stairs. So anyway, yes, he built this place for her. Julia Morgan designed it. She was a fabulous, very underrated architect of the time because she was a woman. The castle is amazing. If you've never seen it, it's worth a visit to California alone to go see Hearst Castle. It's absolutely worth it. I know y'all have those Gilded Age mansions out there, Newport. Come and see Hearst Castle. It's our only real, true Gilded Age mansion out here, but it doesn't disappoint. But the Hearst Castle wasn't just the only thing that they had. They had a real castle. In part 2, we'll explore what happened after Hearst's death to Marion Davies, how she was kicked out of their multi-million-dollar Beverly Hills mansion by his family, and how she ended up broken and lonely and an alcoholic.